The Meeples and Militias podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your huge support throughout the year. We really appreciate it. The Meeples and Militias podcast, episode 237. And yes, it really is 237 this time. Crooked Dice. With hosts Neil Shook, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whittaker. And guests Karl Perretton from Crooked Dice and Peter Wright from Edgehill University. This show was recorded on the 13th of December 2017. Hello and welcome to this festive edition of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shook, and on this show, which is guaranteed to be Star Wars Last Jedi spoiler-free.
Because none of us have seen it yet.
Yeah, well, actually, as of recording, it's not out till tomorrow. So, yes, we haven't seen it yet, so it's guaranteed spoiler-free. First off, we have, joining us once again from the depths of the valleys, it is the Welsh wizard himself, Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hello, Neil. Hello, Meeps. Merry Christmas, one and all. Ho, ho, ho. Blah, blah, blah. Is it over yet?
There I had to bar humbug.
It's Christmas.
And of course, we are also joined by our resident troubadour. It is Mr. Whittaker. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, although it appears that my position as troubadour has been usurped on Twitter by people producing parodies of U2 songs.
Indeed.
That was Gareth, wasn't it? That was Gareth.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Gareth, you're a bad man.
He's a bard, he's Welsh, what can you expect?
He's proper Welsh, he's from the western part.
Yes, we had poetry from Mr. Hyde.
Very good poetry.
Very good poetry. Thank you, Henry, for that ditty. You see, if you don't subscribe to us on Twitter, if you don't follow us on Twitter, there is a whole host of stuff that you are just completely missing.
And a lot of it really is well worth missing.
Absolutely.
but now and again, you get the odd gem.
Indeed. Yeah, so welcome one, welcome all to this Christmas edition of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. Depending on when you are downloading this, it might be Christmas Eve. You might be listening to this, having already stuffed yourself full of some sort of festive bird. And of course, we have to ask, how is the Christmas cake?
I'm glad you raised the Christmas cake question, Neil, because I'm looking at some now.
What?
Yeah, I had a Christmas cake today come through the post from that there America. That lovely man, Mr. John Youngling, sent a very nice, I think it's a little pecan Christmas cake.
What you mean, like this parcel I've got here as yet unopened?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
With the custom declaration says mysteriously, baked goods.
Yes. Give it an open, Mike. Don't let it,
Should we have a live open on podcast?
Oh yeah, and when you get it open, Mike, have a nice smell of it. Smell the aroma.
I would do, but some bleep snicked me penknife. Oh, there it is.
So
we have here a quite generously proportioned parcel of the kind of thing which, if it was heavy, you'd think, my God, what Kickstarter have I backed and forgotten about? This being par for the course in this house at the moment, because Star Saga turned up the other day.
Oh, had you forgotten about that?
Yes, completely.
So Neil, Mike's got a box of baked goods. I've got a Oh,
I'm leaving the mic
have-
on for sound effects, by the way.
Yeah, that sounds good. Did you not get a parcel today, Neil?
No, I didn't.
Oh dear.
Did Neil miss out on cake?
Oh. Are you sure Josh hasn't got it?
That never happened.
Mr. Whittaker, can you just check the address label and make sure my name isn't on it?
Let's have a look.
Is it cake again?
Somewhere around the back. No, definitely Mike Whittaker.
Yeah, mine definitely said Michael Hobbs.
Oh, I'm devastated.
It's a lovely cake. Oh,
It's impressively packed. I'll give
it's
you
very
that.
well packed, yes.
Guaranteed not to come apart in the post. Rip, tear, rend. Oh, the box says made in Canada, which somehow I don't believe. One down. What have we got now? Oh, gosh, more unwrapping. Penknife. Rip, tear, rend. Oh, oof. Oof, jeez. Grief, how many layers are there here?
I might just cut a finger off, so...
This is gripping radio.
Great, fabulous radio. Lots of packing and hey, it almost seems a shame to open that. It's in very nice wrapping paper.
It is, yeah. Oh, you have to open it. Yeah, it's all properly wrapped, everything. John's done a fantastic job, yeah.
You have, you're a gentleman. I'm feeling even more guilty for the fact that there's a box with his address on it sitting by my 3D printer.
What, with my address on it?
No, his.
What about the box with my address on it?
That's sitting by my keyboard. It's not quite finished yet. Oh, I say. Oh, I say. Oh, wow, that's... Oh, holy shit. Pardon my French. Pardon my French, but if there's anything live trapped in there with that cake, it is not sober.
No.
Wow.
That was my first thought.
That is awesome. Thank you, Jonathan.
And I can say it tastes as good as it
I'll
smells.
take a...
Well, enjoy your Christmas cake, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, I think we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we will be catching up.
Sorry, I'm chewing.
Yeah, well, I thought we'd take a quick break to allow somebody to kind of empty their mouth of baked goods.
In my case, it's actually I can never pronounce this. Pierzniczki, which are Polish gingerbread cookies.
Oh, I've got some of those downstairs.
Which Anne has just been baking, and they are fabulous. Apologies to any Polish listeners if I just butchered your language, but the cookies are fabulous.
So, do we have to talk about wargaming? Can we just carry on for the next 2 hours chatting about cakes?
About cakes.
It
Tis
the season.
It is indeed. It is the season, and we have been threatened. We have been threatened to have dispatched to us the chocolate zucchini cake. Did you notice today that it has been threatened?
Thank you, Mr. Cranky.
Indeed, yes. Please excuse my co-hosts while they imbibe on cake and biscuits, and when we come back, hopefully they'll...
Minor point of pedantry, sir. One imbibes liquids. Now, that while there are some in this cake, it's fundamentally solid.
We'll be back after this short break. Don't go away now.
I must get through to Sergeant Watson's position. Jenkins, cover me.
Sir.
Whoa. Sergeant Watson, bring your men in. Withdraw. It's all right, sir. We're enjoying ourselves. What? Yes, sir. It's these here chain of command rules, sir. We're having great fun. Chain of command? That's right, sir. It's a challenging but fun blend of command and control. It gives me the freedom I want to fight the way I want to. Never had so much fun, sir. And we've cooked you some sausages. Can't be helped, sir. Me and the lads are staying put. Chain of command World War II platoon-level rules from two fat larders. They really put you in control. And they're even better than sausages.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. And we're back, and it's that time of the show where we have to catch up with what we've been up to for the last couple of weeks gaming. I went first last time. Whose turn is it? Come on, own up.
I think it might be mine.
Go on then. What have you been doing?
Sure it is.
I've had quite a quiet one again. Painting my Rowan Army.
It's very nice.
It's coming on very, very well. I think I've got about 20 figures left to do, if that. So I've been running a poll over the last 4 days on Twitter to see which army to do next.
Fix.
It wasn't a fix. It was very, very close. The wargs and the elves were on 28%, but the elves just managed to win by apparently 1 vote.
Hanging chads. On demand a recount.
No. A vote's a vote. And so I'm going to be doing elves next. But yeah, currently lots of Rohan. Nearly finished. Can't wait. Playing games, well, we had our sort of monthly trip to Firestorm, which got gate crashed by 2 reprobates from places east of us.
It did. It wasn't my fault, Your Honour. My other mate Dave insisted.
Yeah. So Neil and Dave came out to Firestorm to meet up with me and my mates Ty and Matt from Glenbrook Games and Jeff from Hammond Jam.
Hello, Jeff.
And we had a great day. We played Mansions of Madness, which I broke.
Well and truly.
Well, look, I went insane, and when you go insane in Mansions of Madness, you get a little card which tells you what your insanity is. And mine said, and I have to keep a secret, mine said, I have to stop the investigators from winning. That's all it said. And I thought the best way to stop the investigators winning was to hit Jeff's character with a machete several times.
Until he fell over. Yes, except for the fact that...
Apparently I wasn't allowed to, but I blame the judges.
There aren't any rules. There aren't any rules as such in the game for investigators attacking each other.
It seemed perfectly logical to me. I was insane at the time. I had no control over my actions. So, but let's be honest, Neil. At that time, it wasn't as if you were close to win. Well, you were close to winning. You'd set fire to half the house. The roof had blown up twice. The roof had blown off. Half the rooms had disappeared into a vortex, and there was a large monster crawling around.
Large, many tentacle monsters happened to be creeping up behind. It was going to hell in a handbasket, basically, in several different ways. Was it not?
Yeah, and I just helped by smacking Jeff with a machete several times.
Indeed.
So played that with the app. That was fun. We enjoyed that. We then had a game of 7TV. As we search for this interview that's coming up next, and we played Star Wars, and it was great fun.
It was cool. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I haven't played 7TV since first edition. My second edition box is currently sat just over there. It's still in its shrink wrap. But I do have a second edition. I just haven't had a chance to get it out, and I've even printed off the episode guide for Star Wars. I just haven't got round to it. But it was great fun. Really good fun.
Great fun. Yeah. Other than that, I had a couple of games of Arkham Horror. So we're doing the first campaign. That's going quite well. We finished the second scenario, and I've been asked to give some of the guys in Firestorm a hand with a campaign day that they want to run next year in September, which is going to be based on Arnhem. They want a way to bring in different game systems. So they want to have Chain of Commands, Bolt Action, Flames of War, and any other sort of popular World War II games, all being played together with an overriding sort of campaign background, which obviously is going to be the market garden with 30 call running through. So we were looking at perhaps using a board game to actually sort of manage that, but it probably wouldn't work. So we're gonna try and use it as a sort of idea of where the troops are moving to, and then we'll have the scenarios jump off from that really.
Mhm.
But that was a good fun game. And buying, didn't buy much. I mean, at Firestorm, you guys only bought some paint and a brush.
Crikey.
I did buy 6 more Rowan Riders.
Because you didn't have enough.
I got 42, and it's not a round number. It's a very good number, 42. It is the answer to life of the universe and everything.
Yes.
But I thought 48 is a much more rounded number. So I bought another 6, which I've now got to paint. And I've got some of the oath-marked Dwarves and Goblins from North Star.
Oh,
They look
yes.
very nice.
They're right, yes.
So yeah, they'll see the paint desk at some stage. But that's it. That's all I've been up to.
Mm. Well, I'll go second because mine kind of dovetails quite nicely into yours.
Thought you might.
As you say, we had a day's gaming down in Firestorm. So, yes, other mate Dave took Mansions of Madness down to introduce to the guys down there, which apparently at least cost Matt perhaps a little bit of money. Sorry, Matt. Because I was pleased that everybody really enjoyed it, despite, as I say, the madness with the machete.
It was perfectly logical.
Yes. Since then, other games I've played. We had a game of Scythe last week. Another game of Scythe. We introduced Mr. Luff to Scythe, which we thought he'd absolutely love, and as we said, we really enjoyed it. He's still kind of. I think he still has yet to make up his mind whether he really likes it or not. I think it's a great game. Really enjoyed it, despite the fact I came last.
It is a good game. It's a really clever, intelligent game. But it does take a bit of getting your head around.
It's got a fairly steep learning curve, isn't it?
And I could imagine Dave sitting there for a very long period of time trying to work out all the permutations of what he should be doing.
It was this thing of, what am I doing again? What am I trying to do? Yes. I think the second or third game, he'd probably suddenly go, yeah, okay. Which is quite unusual for those sort of games. Dave kind of catches on quite quickly. But anyway, jury's out with Mr. Luff on Scythe. But we think it's a great game. And then we had another game of Arkham Horror, the card game. Played that on Monday night, and we decided that the game would be our first campaign game. Despite the fact, we've only played the first scenario once before, but we decided to play a full campaign game. Really good game, but we lost. Now, the thing I liked about the way that Arkham does it as opposed to the way that Lord of the Rings does it. Okay, this is talking about the Lord of the Rings scenarios. I'm not talking about the Saga expansions, okay? Because the Saga expansions may do it differently because I haven't played a Saga expansion yet. But in the standard Lord of the Rings scenarios, basically, they are standalone scenarios and you have to beat the scenarios. Okay? It's win or lose. The thing I really liked about the Arkham Horror campaign play is that it carries on whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
You just go to a slight... You go, well, okay, in that case... Oh, you've lost it. In that case, make a note of this. And go to paragraph 2 or paragraph 3.
Yeah, it's really, really clever.
Yeah. It is.
So that your defeat can come and bite you on the back end later.
Well, yes, because the big nasty in the first scenario, which we failed to defeat, because in the first scenario, basically the choice is either fight and kill the big nasty, or run away. And I, through a series of unfortunate coincidences, died, and Dave ran away. So, but as I say, it just means that it makes a note to say, okay, this didn't happen, so this is still in play, carry on.
Yeah, and of course you can use the same character, but you start off with one wound down, don't you? Because you carry the trauma forward.
You carry the trauma forward, which in my case, actually, because I went insane, and I'm playing the FBI agent who only has 5 sanity to start with, I start the game on 4 sanity. I was like, this is impossible. This is not going to go well. I can see this.
They do say sometimes it's best to drop a badly depleted, traumatized investigator and start with a new one, or just bring a new one into the next game. Because you lose all the experience you would have gained. But
indeed, except for the fact, of course, that because we hadn't read the campaign rules before we decided to play the second game, we went and grabbed the clues that we needed to complete the piece of the quest to move on, without ever actually completely depleting the clues from a location and therefore gaining the appropriate victory points. Yeah, I did that wrong. Hey ho, never mind.
But it's always a toss-up because you've always got the thing I really like about it, because in Lord of the Rings you only have the scenario and you're always fighting against the scenario. In Arkham Horror you've got the scenario that you want to progress, but you've also got the agenda deck where if you take things too slowly, that's going to progress and that's going to make things even worse for you. So you've got this sort of dual timeline going on, and whilst you can turn around and go, well, it'd be great to catch, to get all of the clues in the house, and whilst you're spending your time doing that, you've got more nasties coming out to grab you, which is going to slow you down, and that agenda deck is just going to tick forward. And I haven't looked underneath what happens with that, but I could imagine it's pretty nasty. So
it's one of those things of you'd like to look, but you don't want to spoil the surprise.
Yeah.
It was like that because I was saying the first scenario, because we died so early in the first time we played it, the second time round, so we had no idea what happened when we got to, for want of a better phrase, part 3. And it was definitely one of those moments.
Yeah.
How many hit points?
Yes, but it's a great game, isn't it?
Oh, it's really good. Really good game. Yeah, so that's what we've been playing. Painting. I've been painting Samurai. So I've finished the majority. I've actually finished my first 2. My second warband for Test of Honor. Although I very nearly had a massive accident with that. Which almost ruined 2 or 3 figures. That wasn't clever. Yes.
Tell us to your listeners, come on.
Okay. Right. Now, when painting these figures, one of the things I was using some of my old inks. Now, these are some old Citadel inks. Okay. You remember on the last show when Mike was saying, why is your horse shiny? And it's because I'd used Citadel brown ink, which was actually really shiny. And I'd used on a couple of figures. I painted. One was like using a magenta ink over a white undercoat, and then one was using a green ink, and it was over a mix of a grey and a white undercoat, which kind of gave 2 different figures. And I'd done 2 or 3 coats. So it was just a really nice effect, and especially when you're painting like kimonos and stuff, it's just a really fabulous effect. Really liked it, which was fine right to the point where I went to varnish it, and as I was varnishing, I suddenly looked. They were the first couple of figures I started varnishing. I suddenly went, "Hang on a minute, the ink's running." No. Yeah. Yes. It would appear that that varnishing. I was using Army Painter Anti Shine, which is their matte varnish, and it would seem that the medium in the varnish essentially caused the ink to run. Not good.
No.
It could have been a massive disaster. It was bad enough as it was, but I ended up with a grey horse with red ink running down its legs and various other bits and pieces. So it was like grab a paper towel and start mopping up and doing that. Oh, it wasn't pretty. I was not a happy bunny. Anyway, so lessons learned. So put my inks away. Start using washes as opposed to inks. Having averted that disaster, and I must admit, I haven't gathered the courage to try and varnish any more of those figures. I thought I'd move on, and I'm painting some character figures, just a couple more samurai and a couple of musicians and a couple of standard bearers. And this time round, all the figures I'm painting are Perry's. They are so much easier to paint than those plastic things. That apparently I've just seen that Warlord have done another packet. I've reused them again. The plastic samurai. They are producing a plastic samurai box, an army box for pike and shot sort of rules sort of thing. So they reuse it. So I suppose
it's logical to do.
It's logical to do, but it is amazing how much easier these nice, detailed Perry miniatures are to paint than those plastic things from the Warlord have. Anyway, never mind. So that's painting. So it's samurai, and a few more samurai. Okay, and then buying. As I say, we went to Firestorm and I bought paint. Actually, including another surface primer and a big thing of thinner medium. So, because I'm finally being convinced about thinning paint, and then using thinner medium to make as well as glaze medium to make kind of thin washes and experiment with a whole load of that sort of thing. So doing that. I know I'd said that I'd ordered Female Samurai from Bad Squiddo. They arrived. They're really nice. The Dwarves and Goblins from Oathmark. They arrived. And on the subject of dwarves, Conqueror models. You remember they've just released some Dark Age dwarves. Several sets of Dark Age, metal Dark Age dwarves. Yeah. By Colin Patton. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they released a command pack this month. That arrived today. They are very nice, very nice indeed. So yes, finally putting together my Dark Age Dwarf army. That is about it. No, I think I already mentioned that I bought that I got the Gasland stuff. That Mike has just ordered.
Mine's just arrived. Actually.
Yours just arrived. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, no. Mine's been dispatched. It should arrive tomorrow or Friday, I guess.
Yes. No, that's very good. Had that the other day. That's very good indeed. Yeah, that's about me.
So, I've ordered and taken and about to take delivery of the Gaslands accessory pack since. Mr. Hutchison was actually kind enough to send me a copy of the rules before our show. I only needed to order the accessory pack, but that's now ordered. I'm going through a bunch of stuff from Thingiverse for Neil on the 3D printer, and running into some interesting problems, which involve me going back and talking to the bloke who designed them, because a couple of them don't print.
Oh,
At
really?
least they print on some printers, but not others, which is interesting. I'm currently doing them in what looks to be about 15mm scale, so if you don't want this batch in 15mm, I can see how they scale up.
Right.
And I'll have them, otherwise I'll print some more for myself later. But yeah, there's 8 of them are printed quite nicely, and I think 3 of the other 4 should do. but there's one that seems to have some very odd problems with some of its tyres, which appear to be inside out in the model file.
Ooh.
Welcome to the wonderful world of 3D design. I think it's largely the case that some 3D design programs let you get away with stuff and don't show you it looks right, but isn't right because of things like face orientation and the like, which can cause objects to be technically inside out. And if your design program doesn't show you that, then you can have problems.
As you say, welcome to the wonderful world of 3D printing.
Welcome to the world of 3D design and printing, yes. Elsewhere, what else have we done? My copy of Star Saga has just arrived in a sort of, oh yeah, I backed that, didn't I, kind of way.
Did you back a lot of it?
I backed the core set plus a couple of expansions because I'm not actually planning on playing the game. I just want the figures.
Oh, okay, cool.
For various reasons, which will become apparent later.
The kind of like the security type figures. I seem to remember
they're very good generic sci-fi human army, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, I have plans for those. So yeah. I've got someone at the club who wants all my Nameless and my Blaine figure, so which would be fun. So that'll be cool. What else have I done? For those who are looking on Twitter, the builders are taking the old hobby area completely apart.
Yes, I noticed you had a big hole.
Yeah, well, basically we've taken down the floor by about. I think I may have said last time we've taken down the floor by about a foot, so we can actually lay a level floor. Coming up with all kinds of fun things like some really rather nice Imperial Engineering blue bricks that were obviously once the bakery floor for the mill, and a 303 rifle bullet.
Oh yes, you told us about that. Yes,
I mentioned the 303 bullet.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at. More news on what's going to happen with that. Probably about the end of January, beginning of February. Watch this space.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Other than that, games. Had a very nice game of Open Combat in the club's Border Reaver campaign, in which I got drawn against Ruben from PE2 Collectibles, who's our club secretary, and proceeded to completely him, which is very gratifying because I've lost the other two games. Yeah, that was fun. It was Colin, who's running the campaign, has been coming up with some quite nice little scenarios. So this was sort of a one's faction. It's just on a straight 2x4 table, so much more sort of the smaller tables that I know Karl likes. And basically, I get to run away from one edge of the table, and I win if I get over half my force to the other end, or do suitable damage to the pursuing force. I found a nice spot to turn and face them, and mayhem ensued.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do, yeah. I mean, it was quite fun. I still need to get a couple more figures with better ranged weapons because I have to do everything in melee with that force as it stands. But I haven't got any Border Reavers bowmen or Collider wielding figures yet, so that may have to wait till I can buy some more stuff. Speaking of buying more stuff, I didn't. If you don't count the Gaslands accessories, which I think I'd actually ordered before our last show went out. What else have we done? Tom from the club is still busy painting my Peninsular British and Spanish. He'd probably been finished with the Peninsular British, but he begged me to let him paint the elite miniature Spanish guerrillas as well. So he's currently got a whole load of batch production going on, about a dozen Spanish guerrillas and about a dozen 95th and a dozen South Essex, which is going to be fun. So there will be sharp practice in the new year, which will be very nice.
Oh, cool.
I think that's about it. Off to the States on Boxing Day.
Marvellous,
yep.
Cool. Well, in that case then, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have our main part of the show. We will be chatting to Karl Perretton and a guest. Karl Perretton, he of Crooked Dice.
The nation is vast. There are battlefields of old, great convention halls, and worlds of fantasy to explore. Who will guide us across this great geek nation?
Since 2010, Geek Nation Tours have been providing holidays for groups of like-minded people. Whatever your nature of geek, tabletop gaming, TV, film, comic books, sports, or science. Geek Nation Tours caters for you. Visit www.geeknationtours.com for more details and join the great Geek Nation. Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We're very pleased to welcome back to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast after an absence of 2 years, would you believe? It's Mr. Karl Perretton from Crooked Dice. Hello, Karl.
Hello, how are you? It was the restraining order, that's why it's been 2 years.
How are you, mate? You well?
Very well indeed, how are you?
We're good, thank you. We're very good. I can't believe it's been 2 years since we chatted to you.
I know, there's a lot been going on since then.
Well, this is one reason why we've got you back. I think it's about time we caught up with you. But obviously, as part of that, you brought a friend. Can we say hello to Peter Wright? Oh, sorry, I should introduce Dr. Peter Wright. I do apologise.
Oh, no, it's fine. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Peter. Peter has been working with Karl, or Karl has been working with Peter, one or the other, on a project which we will talk about in due course. But now Karl has already introduced himself and done his game of credit on his previous show. But Peter, we have a tradition on this show of when we get a guest on for the first time, we ask them about their gaming history and how they got into gaming, just to kind of prove their gaming credentials.
Okay.
So, Mr. Wright, can you please tell us how on earth you got into the gaming hobby?
Yeah, at secondary school, my English teacher bought the basic edition D&D box set with Keep on the Borderland, and we used to play in our lunch hours. And then a bunch of us got together and bought AD&D, and we played Ravenloft, and I think after I played I6 Ravenloft, that was it. I was kind of lost, and my O-level suffered as a consequence, and my A-level suffered as a consequence.
That is such a classic.
I know, yeah. I think my social life suffered as a consequence as well. But
I was going to say, yeah. As introductions go, Keep on the Borderlands Ravenloft is going some. It's a pretty good introduction.
Did your party spend the last half of the scenario sharing round the one remaining hit point?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's how it goes.
We had a fighter who wandered around for the whole mission carrying the 10-foot pole because he thought he could keep anything at a distance. He couldn't, and he died horribly. But that was Ravenloft really. And then after that, started playing Call of Cthulhu. Lost a little bit of time playing Games Workshop, Warhammer 40k, and then kind of in the last 5 or 6 years, just rediscovered miniatures and gaming through lots of the small British games companies, which are just fantastic. And one of them was Crooked Dice. A friend of mine in Canada had started playing the Federated Security and the Future Freedom Fighters, and he gave me a call and said, "Do you know about Crooked Dice?" And I said no. And when I took a look, I bought those and got it into it that way, really. So it's kind of a second phase of a gaming experience, really.
Cool. So, okay, I have to ask, you said, okay, I lost some time on Games Workshop. Armies? What armies did you have?
I was always playing undead, so, vampire counts, and then I flirted a little bit with Tomb Kings and Chaos. I was a big Michael Moorcock fan when I was growing up, so always kind of attracted to Chaos and Chaos Knights and Beastmen and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they were my armies, really. And I kind of had a small Space Marine army, but they were kind of all the same and not very interesting. And I preferred skeletons and vampires. So that was...
You can't beat those original Citadel skeletons. They're still some of the best things out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Considering you're a Moorcock fan, are you aware of the current Hawkmoon miniatures range that is being produced?
No, I didn't. No, yeah, that's going to cost me money now, isn't it? That's
this is one thing we like to do. Mr. Hobbs, would you care to elucidate?
They're very, very nice. He's doing. He's starting off with Carmag. He's released the infantry for that, and Count Brass and Hawk Moon and a few other characters. He's also talking about doing it in 10mm.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically the sound I make, Carl.
Is that when they're miscast? Is that right? When 28mm miscast? Is that?
No.
I'm not sure what they are.
10mm, little baby ones, little baby, big battles. But
For those of us who actually still have functioning eyesight.
I was going to say, I was glad things were going to 32mm. You know, as my eyesight gets worse, it gets easier. But 10mm, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, but it's, obviously as part of the Hawk Moon range, they're doing all the Grand Baton infantry with all the different helmets. Oh, they're nice.
I was going to say that sounds really nice.
Okay, so that's Eureka Miniatures.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Eureka Miniatures from Australia.
And they are available in the UK from Fighting 15s, I believe.
Indeed, they are.
Yeah. But they're nice.
So there we go. That's our first drive-by of the evening.
10 minutes in, we've already cost someone money.
Yeah. What else can I get you on for Moorcock? I have got the Stormbigger RPG box set. Well, that's a good buy if you can get that, Peter.
That's it. It's really nice. I mean, I think that one of my prized possessions is the Games Workshop Eternal Champion miniature set.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Which is really nice. I think Jez Goodwin probably did most of them. I think.
Yeah, he did. I think.
They're really nice.
Yeah.
We used those for stuff for years and years and years in every game we ever played.
Yeah. Good on Moorcock. And he's still going strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we done then? Is that it?
Actually, Carl, can you just kind of go and take a seat somewhere a bit? I think we've got some other talking to do.
As soon as anybody mentions Moorcock, that's it. I just feel too.
You might want to have a look at what Steve Saller's doing at the moment over at Lucid Eye as well.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
He's done a couple of bits which have I think are inspired by some of those works. So.
Right. Oh, that'd be nice to look at.
Ooh. Right. Okay. Already, we can tell this is going to be an interesting conversation. Right. Okay.
Tune in. I'm busy googling.
Right, okay. Okay, so definitely at this point we can turn out to Peter and say, one of us.
Been inducted into the cult.
Indeed. Great. Fantastic stuff. All right. Thank you, Peter. Right. Okay. Back to Carl. So, Carl, what's Crooked Dice been up to since 7TV second edition launched?
Oh, spinning lots of different plates, really. There's still the kind of the regular kind of eclectic monthly led releases. 7TV, when that launched second edition, that seemed to took a little while to pick up, kind of like about 6 months or so. But then people started to play. You know what it's like when there's a pile of new games that you've got in front of you. But I think people got around to playing it and started to pick that up, and the community started to build around that. So that was good to see, and that seemed to go well. And we launched a couple of kind of program guides and bits and pieces along the way, and some supplements with the annual that we had out. God, that may have only been kind of like about a year ago. I think we bought that out.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did spot that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite nice because I really wanted that to show the kind of the scope and breadth of what you could do with 7TV, really. So it had some fan articles in there. Mike Jarvis, kind of one of the guys that plays a lot on us. I think he won the last War Games Illustrated 7TV day. Had Marty's Monster, which was kind of his take of sort of almost Rent-A-Ghost as a 7TV cast, kind of like a kids' TV show. So there was an article in there or feature in there about how he put that together, kind of using some of the templates, some more stuff on how you could kind of customize some of the cards. And since then, actually, there's now an app for generating your own profile cards where you can put in all the text and put in your own photographs and generate all your own bits and pieces as well, which has proved quite popular.
Oh, cool. So, yeah, is that on both iOS and Android?
At the moment, I believe it's just on Chrome at the moment.
Oh, okay, cool.
But yeah, that's great. So people can basically, you can completely make up your own profile cards from that, and that seems to have been quite popular with people. So yeah, it's just really kind of adding to what we tried to do to start off with, is add to the core of 7TV with that and some extra kind of sort of bespoke casts with Department X, which are kind of like a military spy cast, and Shiva, which were kind of our version of Spectre, I guess, with a bit of a kind of a Eastern twist to it. And we brought the Paranormal Exterminator deck out as well, so that's got lots of good kind of Americana monsters and bits and pieces in it. So yeah, it's kind of slowly continuing to release stuff for the actual core game, which is seems to be going quite well. Still quite popular, which is good.
Cool. Crooked Dice has been kind of diversifying a bit, hasn't it, over recent months?
Yeah, kind of since the beginning of the year, me and Graham, we both used to kind of run the company, sort of parted ways. So I've started to kind of look at what I could do a little bit differently in there. And yes, a little bit of MDF, just experimenting with kind of other little bits and pieces as part of the hobby, really. So it's still I find it difficult to get kind of sort of modern terrain. So we've done a kind of a secret base MDF starter set, which is some basic kind of walls and doorways which we're then going to expand out with bespoke rooms. So we've got a kind of a nice cell block that kind of goes with it. We've got a villain's lair coming up, a kind of interrogation room stroke kind of lab. So you're basically going to be able to, it starts off at 2 foot by 2 foot, but you're going to be able to kind of build up with that. And there's some great little MDF kind of computer banks, which is how I first kind of started working with figure bits. So Gary was designing all of those, which I thought were resin when I first saw them. And he popped them on one of the forums. And just good retro kind of bits of kit to kind of populate your villain's lair or your secret HQ with. So they're quite nice. Mm-hmm. And then also this year I've started to release some resin terrain, which I'm now the proud owner of the Pargilon range, which was owned by Jens Beckman. But he kind of decided that he was going to shut his doors on Pargilon. So a few months afterwards, I inquired about kind of maybe purchasing the range, because I've been a customer of his and went on to buy something onto the website and realised that he'd shut down and sobbed for a little while and thought, hold on a minute, this is too good to let go, really. So that's slowly been released over the last year. There's lots of kind of post-apocalyptic kind of scrap piles and scrap walls and junk piles and that kind of thing. Some really beautiful post-apocalyptic buggies and trucks, which are going to be coming out in the new year. There's just loads and loads of pieces in there.
Buggies and trucks, you say?
Wonder what you could use those for, Neil.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, Jen's kind of approach to stuff, it's the same. He's got some shanty towns as well. And he does things in a really nice kind of modular way. The way that he approaches the design of the things was really appealing as well. So the buggies and the trucks are all kind of modular, so you're getting a chassis and the different parts, and then you can essentially pimp your ride depending on what you kind of want to go on it, whether you want kind of spikes on it or a roll cage or engine at the front and back for the basic buggies. And then there's a larger truck, and I'm going to expand out on some of those to try and kind of use the same pieces in a kind of, like an Interceptor style kind of car, and we'll add some bikes and probably a six-wheeler to it as well. So there'll be a kind of range of post-apocalyptic vehicles for one of the things that we're working on at the moment for the kind of the next box set that we're going to be doing. So yeah, it's quite a bit. Try to, as you say, diversify into a couple of different areas so that as well as the miniatures, you've got some bits and pieces to play on and around, really.
And if anybody hasn't seen the Pardulan shanty buildings, they're just fab. I've got a few of them, and they're just really nice castings. Well worth getting hold of.
Yeah, it's a really simple. There's kind of just 6 or 8 basic pieces which are modular, which you can then kind of build like a single story building, or up and out, or across, or whatever you like. And the other pieces in the range, like the sheet metal barricades and things like that, all kind of work with it just to kind of build up that little set. So if you're coming to Salute, there'll be a table with lots of that on.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And the junk piles as well.
Yeah, it's good, useful kind of generic scatter stuff for modern or, I don't know, 40k Necromunda, you could stretch some of it as well.
Really, really good stuff. So I'm glad that's been picked up.
Yeah, I'm a terrain head really more than anything else, and I was really lucky that Jen's let me pick it up. Really.
Cool.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was distracted. I was looking at terrain.
Come on, So I've just been drooling over the Lucid Eye stuff.
Have you found the bits I was talking about? The new releases?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Some of those will be on the Christmas list. I'm fine now. I'm back.
I do think this is going to turn into a very, very expensive episode.
Potentially, yes. Yes, right, okay. Sorry, focus. Right, okay.
That's all right.
Right, yeah, so you've been branching into scenery and various other bits and pieces. Any particular model ranges or bits of model ranges you've particularly worked on?
With the terrain, or just with the kind of the future miniature releases?
Looking backwards at the moment to what you have been doing as opposed to what you are going to do. Are there any particular releases you would highlight, or has it just been a case of you just been building through your, especially the base sets for second edition 7 TV, which of course you just run a pre-order for is that a reprint?
Yeah, we did the first one. We were, it was fairly modest really, but we ran out of those ironically just before the UK Games Expo, which meant to have a game there, and we didn't actually have a need to sell at that point. So I was holding on for a little bit I wondered really whether we kind of reached our ceiling with kind of interest for the game, but kept getting lots of requests for people to ask us when it was going to be available again. So kind of took a bit of a jump and did a reprint with it, and did the same kind of pre-order campaign as we did before, but with a lot more casts now, because we've got more kind of sets of, so those kind of starter sets of 8 miniatures. And yeah, that ended a couple of weeks ago, and that's with the printer at the moment, so I get delivered in January. So it should be landing in letterboxes, I hope kind of mid-Jan. So we've been trying to support the game kind of with a few more kind of sort of miniatures there. What's been out in the last kind of year or so? Some female minions. Always tried to get a mix of kind of troop types and then personality sets, and then just some weird stuff in there as well that I particularly like. Monsters this year. I think we had a giant ape at the beginning of the year, I think.
Oh, that was gorgeous.
I kind of did a Mighty Joe Young size kind of one, but it is a digital sculpt, that one, so that could get increased to bigger if I ever wanted to. So yeah, we did that. Female minions. There were a few little additions to kind of Time Lost in there as well. Some hero cops. We did some kind of lawmen earlier. I think they were probably out since we last spoke. So there's 16 different kind of US kind of cops really. Armed with various different weapons, kind of pistols and things, and we added some personalities to go with that. So how can I describe these? A big kind of bearded sheriff guy investigating various strange things.
I think it's fair to say that your miniatures all seem to have a certain theme that if you're of a certain age or generation, you sort of will look at it and go, that reminds me of something.
Yeah, we try to kind of do stuff that isn't available kind of anywhere else and has a bit of a kind of a nostalgic feel to it. Yeah. So yes, the hero cops are there as well. A good gribbly monster, the Beast Below, I was particularly pleased with that we had out, which is kind of a big octopus kind of Cthulhuid thing, and some plant monsters. I realised that there's an old Doctor Who episode called Seeds of Doom with Tom Baker. It's the most Avengers of Doctor Who episodes. And it's basically the Thing. The Thing from Another World is kind of half of it, and there's a big plant monster. It had a weird effect on me when I was a kid. So we've got some plant monsters. I've realised I've released a few of those this year. Yeah, so as ever, kind of a weird eclectic mix of things. Some female cultists we had recently as well. Just some pulp heroes, a kind of a flying ace and a time traveller and a jetpack guy that fit in with the kind of new Time Lost program guide that are coming out. And when the Children of the Fields are just out, that's an idea of a cast that's been around since first edition, which we've never really been able to do anything with.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a program guide for that coming out, so there's a good kind of there's a Crow King, and there'll be animated. Well, we've already got the kind of scarecrows, but a kind of a folk horror cast, really, which is an area that I've always been quite interested in. So there'll be some Morris Men and Master Beasts and that kind of thing coming up in the new year as well to go with those.
Oh, that'd be nice. That's the thing with 7TV is you sort of think, I don't need this. Oh, that looks good. And that's your figures. They just take you down strange alleyways.
You speak for yourself, mate.
If you're buying them off anyone in a strange alleyway, then I'm not getting a cut, and B, just be careful.
I have my pushes, don't worry. But it's the sort of thing you sort of go onto your side of thinking, I just want to get this one miniature, and then you walk away with a huge pile of things that you didn't know you needed until you saw them.
Well, it's a bit of an eclectic mix, really. So hopefully there's something there for everybody. But it's there's some type, there's some things that are occasionally vanity projects, I must admit. But hopefully they'll sell at some stage.
I'm sure they will.
Right, so that's what you have been releasing. But obviously, one of the reasons to have you on is to let you tease us with what's coming up. And it sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah, again, wanted to kind of expand out what you could do with 7TV. So there's at least 4 program guides in the works for 7TV. We will be doing ones for the Argonauts, which are kind of our kind of robotic faction in there. The Children of the Fields that I mentioned earlier, they'll be getting a really good solid lead release with those. They'll be the first out kind of next year. There's the Time Lost, which has kind of been slightly reworked from first edition. There's a kind of a Land of the Lost kind of Irwin Allen feel to it. Also Granville, the Brian Talbot graphic novels. We saw some of the figures through Ocelot Games, and Helena that has got the license with Brian to do those. She's got 4 or 5 miniatures coming up, and also has got a program guide that she's written, which I've about to start laying out as well. So there'll be something for that. So that's the kind of the 7TV kind of core spy-fi stuff that we're trying to expand.
Yeah.
But since we had all of those lovely buildings and the buggies and bits and pieces from the Pargelon range, and I've long wanted to do a kind of a second edition of Zombie TV, which was quite a good seller for us in kind of first edition. And I wanted to do that in second.
Because everything's better with zombies. Yeah, I know.
Everything's monkeys. Everything's better with monkeys, but monkey zombies also. Zombie TV was a great thing, but I looked at it in second edition, and actually it was kind of quite narrow. It had just a few profiles for kind of survivors and zombies, and that was about it. So I've expanded that out in the second edition to cover kind of all of the kind of post-apocalyptic genres that I could cram into it, from kind of killer robots to 1950s B-movie giant ants to kind of British sci-fi survivors and,
certain very long-running comic series involving law enforcement.
Yeah. There's loads in there.
Was that really careful enough?
That was careful enough, yeah. And even, if you want to play Thundar the Barbarian, you can play Thundar the Barbarian with it. So we've tried to kind of take the same approach with the kind of spy-fi action movie stuff with 7TV and apply that to the post-apocalyptic genre in all its different kind of facets, really. So we didn't want it just to be a kind of, so it's exactly the same engine as 7TV, because that's not broke, really, but about 80 or 90 new archetypes in there, and the new thing that makes it different from 7TV are some proper vehicle combat rules in there. So you can do the kind of, if you want to do Mad Max Across the Wastelands, you'll be able to do that with the game as well. So that's going to have some nice kind of 5 vehicle templates, and then you can modify those and kind of and pimp your rides with various, all those kind of classic vehicle modifications that we see. So yeah, that'll be something new for it. So I've got about 8 more profiles to write, and then some few other bits and pieces to go into it, and then hope to get that play tested in the new year, really in the next kind of couple of months. And I'm saying a 2018 release at the moment, rather than putting an exact period on it. But I'm hoping kind of summer, early autumn that'll be ready to go, because I want that out of the way for the next thing that we're working on as well. So.
Cool. Because you just announced some new kind of female survivors, which are kind of vaguely related to that.
Yeah. There's a few in the works. They're the first of it. So to be fair, there's lots of kind of zombie hunters and post-apocalyptic and some fantastic ones, quite frankly. But we just want to add a few in there. So that there's some lead to go with the range. So Ernst Weingart, who sculpts us a lot, has been doing some of those, and we've got some more coming up. Andrew May has been doing some as well, and also Ian Colwell, who used to own Tengu Miniatures. Been working with him. He just did the recent Children of the Fields. So yeah, we're working with some sculptors to kind of get some lead to support it as well, which should be good. Plus, we'll have the vehicles and whatever those.
Yeah,
we talked about earlier. So
yeah, those vehicles look superb.
Yeah, they're really nice.
And the reason we have Peter on the show is you're doing something else.
Yes. Peter, do you want to stop me blabbing for a bit and give a tease?
Yeah. Should I tell you a little bit about how it came about first? Or?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I work at Edgehill University. I'm part of the creative writing team there, and back in 2015, a couple of my colleagues started Edgehill University Press with the idea of publishing one major work each year and using a group of students as interns to give them experience and to improve their employability. So the first publication we did was a collection of short stories. Then we did a collection of poetry and poetics. Another set of colleagues are working on Scenes from the Revolution, which is a book about sort of leftist drama. And I teach the games thread in the degree. And I thought it'd be kind of nice to get some students together and actually do something sort of creative and develop a game. And I met Karl at the Games Expo in 2017. And we started chatting, and we both kind of really liked pulp, and we got talking about Edgar Rice Burroughs and our love of the Martian books and Tarzan and things. And when I had the opportunity at the university to develop a kind of game in collaboration with a company, I naturally thought of Karl, so we got in touch and we had a chat. And we decided that we were going to develop 7TV Pulp, which is a tabletop war game based on pulp fiction, but also on largely on the 1930s and 40s cinema serials. So that's what we're working on at present moment. So I've got a team of sort of 12 students and myself and Karl, and we're working collaboratively to bring those pulp cinema serials to the tabletop.
So we're talking things like Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, sort of stuff.
Dick Tracy, the Spider, the Shadow, Captain Marvel, a whole host of different kind of serials. And the only thing we've not really been able to reconcile with that is all the serials that were done that were westerns, and they kind of stand outside of what we're doing. Mm. So maybe one of these days we'll get around to doing kind of 7TV out west or something. I don't know.
I definitely think so, yes. I think that's a little program guide in its own right, that one.
Yeah, which would be great fun to do. So today we had a meeting at the university, and we just started to put together our genres and our new cast profiles and our archetypes and things. It's so new. Karl hasn't seen them yet, so he probably doesn't want me to talk about them. But that was quite a lot of fun this afternoon, just sort of thrashing out the kind of research the students have done. They've spent the last 5 weeks watching, 80-year-old cinema serials, which has been a bit of a culture shock, I think.
How did they get on? Did they survive?
They survived fine, and they really, really enjoyed it. And they recognised a lot of them were terrible, but some of them were surprisingly good. The Flash Gordon ones stand up pretty well. Buck Rogers is okay. The Dick Tracy ones, one of my students really, really likes Dick Tracy ones. So we all brought something different to it. A lot of the jungle ones, so we had to split the jungle serials up between about 3 of us because there were so many of them. So they've been working on that, and we finally kind of got our sort of 144 profiles sorted out that I'll be sending to Karl in the next few days to see what he thinks of them.
Oh, exciting.
144.
It was a long afternoon. I wouldn't let them leave basically until it was done. So
I think from what Peter was telling me, it's very much about kind of seeing how they can adapt systems and adapt different material into the world, and that's what's been quite interesting to me to see, taking an academic approach to something that I kind of make up as I go along. To be absolutely honest with you, but it's been fascinating to be involved. It's nice to work with publishing teams again as well, because that's my background. So it's been great so far. So I'm looking to see how that develops.
We've been spending some time sort of learning 7TV rules as well. So a couple of times a week we try and get together and play a few games of 7TV, just so everybody's kind of fully conversant with how it all works. Students really, really love it. It's great.
So, playing 7TV as part of your university course. Oh, it's background learning. We need to know this for our creative writing skills.
That's absolutely it. Yeah, they do poetry, they do fiction, they do screenwriting and script writing, and they do games design from the first year. We've got 3 modules running, so we do introduction to writing for narrative games in the first year, writing for role-playing games in the second year, and then writing for digital adventure games in the third year. So most of the team are sort of third year and postgraduate students. So they've got 2 or 3 years of game design behind them.
I mean, first of all, I am so impressed that you've got a university that teaches that stuff. Because I mean, okay, I'm a bit of I suppose I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but I just wasn't aware that sort of thing was being taught at university these days. That's brilliant.
I'm really lucky to work. I mean, to work at Edgehill. Edgehill's really quite progressive and thinks quite a lot about how it prepares its students for the world of employment. So if you've got students who are learning to write fiction, learning to screenwrite and script write, and learning poetry as well, writing games seemed to be the most important thing we added into that. We added it in about 5 years ago because it's a major industry, and there's also opportunities to start your own business, to work in small groups, and also to kind of look further afield to Europe and to the US as well. So it was always seen as a really important, integral part of that broad creative writing experience.
Mm. They know their stuff as well. From the kind of met with all of the students in there and had some kind of great conversations, very much like the beginning of the program when, how did you get into gaming and what have you done? And there's some really great people working on the team there. So I think it's going to be a cracker, quite frankly.
Cool. So this is it's quite interesting, as I say, when you got this. Okay, yeah, it's this game design, but it's actually part of an academic project. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when does this academic project come to its conclusion?
We're hoping to have a fully play-tested kind of alpha version by the middle of next year, June, and then we'll spend summer play-testing it and adapting it and remodeling it and making sure we've got the balance right in terms of the star qualities and special effects. Think about the rules around cliffhangers and things like that and how they might work. And then we'll spend probably another 8-9 months refining it and typesetting it and really passing it fully over to Karl. Karl's going to be with us every step of the way in terms of its development. But then we pass it over to him and he works his magic on it and produces the game. And then hopefully we launch, fingers crossed, 2019.
So, UK Games Expo launch in 2019 then?
I think that was the plan.
That's penciled in, isn't it? So I don't see.
I defer to Karl on all of this because it's Karl's company and things like that. So,
but considering where you met, that would kind of be cool.
Yeah, and I think it's got a huge audience in terms of visitors and things now.
Yeah.
We could find the space to do some quite nice demonstration games. It gives us 18 months or so to work up some terrain, although I believe Karl has got an enormous amount of terrain that he can already do.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah. So it'll be great, and I think we're probably going to try and get some of the team. We're almost certainly going to get some of the team to come down and launch the game and do some PR with us and things like that. So it's looking good.
It will be something definitely worth contacting Games Expo themselves about, because to have this story that this is something that can happen at the UK Games Expo, where you get people engage 1 year, 2 years later, they are here launching a game. That is a story that they would really be interested in. So it's worth contacting them.
Yeah, that's grand. I've just booked for next year actually, so I'll strike up a conversation with them about that.
That is something that they will definitely be interested in. From their point of view, it will be, a bit of a success story of something that happened off the back of for want of a better phrase, chance meeting. Cool. Excellent stuff.
And it might, hopefully it'll inspire other young people to get involved in the industry and the hobby as well, and maybe think about, the possibilities for them as writers.
From an education business point of view, I suppose, especially with the way the gaming industry as a whole has taken off, and is becoming, such a huge part of the leisure market. I suppose it's something that you would now consider as employment, which, even 10, 15 years ago, it just wouldn't have been an option, or wouldn't have been on most people's radar.
Absolutely, and I think as well, sort of electronic publishing has opened the field up to freelance writers, self-publishers, operating through any number of websites and creator programs. Creator programs for D&D, new creator program that's coming out for Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu. So there's a lot of opportunities for young writers to get involved in the industry, and we should try and encourage that as much as we can, when we can, really.
That's certainly what attracted me to it. When Peter initially suggested the idea, it's being able to kind of get people into the hobby. Really, when if we're at shows or looking around, there's a particular demographic in the wargaming community, and I think a bit of fresh blood every now and again is definitely what we need. So I think it's a really great opportunity.
I think part of the consequence of Games Workshop having such a monolithic presence in the marketplace is it overshadows all of the other interesting games that are around, produced by smaller companies. Many of the students that are involved with 7TV Pulp have been playing Warhammer and Warhammer 40k, mainly Warhammer 40k, for 10 years, but they've never stepped outside of that to look at the whole array of other interesting tabletop war games that are available. And this is one of the ways we can actually get them to think about the possibilities for gaming outside that kind of huge kind of presence that GW have got on the high street and in the hobby, really.
Yeah, it is amazing that, it's like, once you step outside of the big spotlight that is Games Workshop, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there is quite a bit of other stuff going on. Yeah.
There's loads. Yeah, there's loads of small companies, really micro businesses, the majority of them, in there with good ideas and a lot of talent. But it's just exposing people to those when, as you say, there's a couple of big boys out there that certainly that overshadow some of them. But,
and I think as in some ways that obscures the fact that you can pursue different interests in gaming. So, I mean, like Karl, my background is really 1960s and 70s cult TV. That's what attracted me to 7TV in the first place. And there are a lot of other people who've got sort of interest in Edgar Rice Burroughs, or they've got interest in TV or interest in film, and they don't realize that they can play games within those contexts because they're playing 40k and they're not playing anything else. So, the John Carter role-playing games coming out, nice range of miniatures for that. So if you're interested in Edgar Rice Burroughs, that you can play that kind of thing. Crooked Dice 7TV, the Avengers, Department S, all of those kind of things are kind of covered in a lovely sort of pastiche and very British way. And it's just nice to have that freedom to dip into things that you're really interested in, rather than playing in someone else's kind of world that you're buying into, but doesn't really necessarily speak to you about your own interests.
Well, 7TV, it really write what you know. That's where I came from. It was easy to write that because I'd been kind of immersed in it, and I think if anyone's got a passion, whatever the subject it might be, go with that first and see where that leads you.
And the one thing with 7TV, because of its format, you look at any kind of, well, I mean, you can use almost any TV series as inspiration, can't you? So as you say, you kind of think, okay, well, what interests you? Obviously, with the amount of material out there, there is an absolute host of scenario ideas available, and as I say, all you need is a proven game engine, just something to sit it on, and then away you go.
Turn on UK Gold, watch an episode of something, write it down, play a game. Simple as that.
Mm.
And it does work really well. I mean, we had that great game of Star Wars.
Oh, we did.
Firestorm. Was that the first time you played it, Neil?
I think it's the first time I played second edition. I played first edition a couple of times, but that's the first time I played second edition.
Yeah, and it just worked really well. We had the Imperial Assault figures, and we just picked up one of the tables at Firestorm and put together a couple of factions. Came up with an idea for the first scenario, and spent the next 2 hours rolling dice and having a fantastic time.
Well, you can adapt it to anything. I mean, that you could argue that's more sci-fi in there, but it's just the action concept. I mean, this is why I think it will work well with pulp. I mean, argue if we go back a few years to when we first did 7TV, the reason that Graham first wrote the rules for the WMG as it first was in there was that he couldn't find a decent set of pulp rules to play. So we've always had to try to do something which has kind of had a cinematic feel to it in there. So when Peter and I started talking, you could see all the different elements that come from all of those cliffhanger serials immediately fit into it. Arguably TV and movies have just been built on that, especially episodic kind of TV, have been built on that for the last 30 or 50 years anyway. So it wasn't much of a stretch to see that it would work, really.
Yeah, and of course you get the benefits of, because it's a low figure count, you can swap between different genres and different backgrounds.
Yeah, you don't need to invest in a huge amount of figures, and if some people have got their favourite figures that they want to play with, well, you can. There's no reason why you can't adapt any of the profiles to kind of fit in with the figures that you've got. And as you say, swap genres between spy-fi and western and sci-fi fairly easily, because it's just generic archetypes, really.
Indeed.
So going back, Peter, going back to you, as far as Edgehill University Press is concerned, if people are interested, listening and interested in getting involved in what you're doing, how do they best go about that?
Well, I mean, if they're interested in creative writing, then they can apply to the university to study creative writing, and games will be a thread within their creative writing degree. It'll constitute about 25-30% of their degree, and they'll get an option in the third year that if they want to work on a big piece of creative writing that's game related, they can do that as well. So in the past, a number of our students have written role-playing game scenarios, for example, which is the usual big piece of work that they choose to do. So the best way, I think, is to think about undergraduate study. And if they are interested in games design, then come make an application or come and see us on an open day, come and have a chat, and they can see the campus and we can talk about what we do in a little bit more detail. And they can talk to us about their aspirations and the way they see their career going, or what their interests are, and we can discuss it further.
Thinking more outside the box, do you look at mature students and perhaps distance learning? Is that an option?
Certainly mature students. Distance learning we haven't really thought about in terms of creative writing. Maybe it is something we will think about, but certainly we have a lot of mature students, or have had a lot of mature students in the past, and a couple of our current students, one's in his mid-50s, he's doing his MA with us at present moment, but was involved in some role-playing game writing that I was doing. And then we've got another student who's very, very keen on sort of a role-playing game career. She's sort of late 20s, and she's very much a Call of Cthulhu player.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, mature students, always welcome. Edgehill has had a long history of kind of providing mature students with good educational experiences.
Cool. Well, Karl, it sounds like your next year to 18 months is going to be quite busy.
Yeah, it does. Now that I'm thinking about it.
I actually wanted an interesting thing I wanted to ask, because obviously we've mentioned it a couple of times. So what were your thoughts on UK Games Expo? Was that the first time you've traded there?
No, I'd 2 or 3 years before, when it was just in the hotel.
Yes.
I'd been in there, and I think I signed up fairly late and was in one of the side rooms in the main hotel. The buzz of it I really liked. It reminded me of the old Gen Con days when it was down in Canberra Sands. It had that sort of buzz about it.
Yeah.
But from a trading perspective, there wasn't the room really. People were just kind of shuffling apart, but it was really apparent that it was a much wider and diverse range of people than I was seeing at more traditional wargaming shows. Some people hadn't seen miniatures at all. What are they? They were saying as they kind of shuffle past. And there's, I don't know, I think there was 14,000 people or something there last year. Was it something like that?
Yeah, I think biggest day on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think it was about 14,000. Yeah.
And I know that the numbers were big the kind of couple of years that I'd done it again. So I'm thinking, well, even if it's not just wargaming people, there's lots of people are seeing my stuff that maybe haven't seen it before.
Yes.
So I went back this year. It's much better now. It's in the NEC.
Oh yeah.
Just much easier to kind of get around, really. So, I've just booked to go back next year. So it's a good 3 days.
So it's a good show for you then, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, so I think it was just the volume of people, really. But yeah, it was three solid days trading. The Saturday certainly outstripped the other two. There was just lots of people there then, but really good crowd.
Yeah, and of course, from a miniatures point of view, the stuff that you do obviously has a certain generational appeal, shall we say?
Yeah, though I would say there's definitely a younger crowd at the expo, though that didn't seem to kind of affect sales too much. I don't think. I think people kind of recognise a lot of the stuff that we do. But it was quite nice for me actually to see other kind of small miniature companies that a lot of guys that have done kind of Kickstarters that I wasn't really aware of. That are not on the normal kind of miniature wargaming circuit, more the kind of miniature board game side the side of things. So that was kind of nice to see as well.
Good stuff. Well, it's been fantastic to catch up with you. Thanks very much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, thank you.
And Peter, it's been great to chat. The whole course, what you're doing is really interesting, and I wish you the very best of luck with pulling 7 TV Pulp together.
Thank you very much.
I hope it goes well. Sounds like lots to look forward to from Cookie Dice over the next year or so. So as far as 7 TV, this kind of post-apocalyptic sort of thing. I know you're kind of saying sometime in 2018. Are we likely to see it sooner or later? Or
I'd say probably late summer, early autumn.
Right.
I may be able to drag it forward a little bit there, but I just want to make sure that we've got some lead and bits and pieces with it as well.
Right. Okay. So we're likely to see it with the model releases later in the year as opposed to early.
Yeah, I would have thought so. We're just going to test it. Obviously, the vehicle combat stuff needs really thorough testing because that's a kind of a brand new add-on to it. So quite literally, I want to make sure the wheels don't fall off that. Or not, depending on what table you roll them. So yeah, that'll have to come first, and then they'll be kind of supported with lead and also the vehicles as well. I want to make sure that they're available for when the game itself comes out.
Well, okay. I shall wait impatiently for that then, because they look really cool.
Thank you.
But it's been fantastic to chat with you. Thank you very much for catching up. All the very best with stuff over the next year. I assume we'll bump into you at various shows, and I'll be bugging you for how things are going, and when I can buy my buggies.
Shouldn't be too long.
That's cool, bro. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us on.
We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Interesting stuff coming from Cookie Dice.
Yes, it is, and that Apocalypse game does sound good. Especially with all of the rules for vehicle combat,
Combat and buggies,
and all sorts of stuff like that. That'd be great.
It does look. They do look very nice. They're very nice indeed. Yes, and that Podulin I've forgotten about the Podulin scenery.
Oh, that's lovely.
That is nice, isn't it? Cool. So so interesting stuff coming from Cookie Dice. Yes, more tempting stuff to
tempt us with.
To try and make us part with. Open our wallets even further. So, postman hasn't been.
Still no cake.
Mine's gone.
Wow, drunk in charge of a podcast microphone.
Not the whole cake, just the slice I had.
I was going to say, we're hungry.
Although I am worried because I've left the wife downstairs alone with the cake.
Oh dear.
Yeah, could be carnage.
For who?
Me when I go downstairs.
So, I suppose that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's So that not only is that it for this show, but that's almost it for 2017. We obviously have the end of the year roundup to do, but I mean that might not actually hit until the new year, especially since this is only breaking over Christmas, and so actually this is probably the last show that you will download in 2017.
Wow, we made it.
We did.
Yep.
Well,
and the good news is Patreon have got back on their stupid funding thing.
Yes, that was they were.
Although actually, that's probably a little bit unfair to Patreon in that they have gone back on it in a manner which basically said, "We're really sorry, we got that very wrong."
Yeah,
which is classier than some companies have been in similar circumstances.
Yes, the amount of outcry about what they were doing about their about the changes to if you weren't aware, Patreon decided to amend the way they were processing payments, because I think it's a case of they want to avoid being classed as a particular type of financial institution, but they did so in a way that would meant that they were passing all the vast majority of the cost of processing onto backers, and no choice. It was just, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Now, interestingly, there were a couple of posts yesterday from people who probably had a very good idea of why they were doing it.
Yes.
It's all to do with, because they were trying, what they were doing was batching up everybody's pledges at the beginning of the month, and then so that only incurred one transaction fee at their end, and then they could split the cost of the transaction fee between all the backers.
Yes.
But they were apparently potentially running foul of some financial legislation, which meant that technically they would move into a different class of money handling company if they did that they really, really, really didn't want to do.
So
there was a very there were sound business reasons for doing it. I think perhaps they should have looked at the demographics and pledge sizes of their backers first. My friend Seanan, who I've mentioned before, who writes as Myra Grant and wrote the feed stuff, an awful lot of her Patreon backers back her at the $1 level. And she stood to lose a ridiculous amount of money from people backing out pledges for January.
Yeah, basically, and this is, I mean, the people who back us on Patreon, it's $1, $2, or $3, but basically, that they were turning with the way they were passing on costs. They were increasing costs to the backers of somewhere in the region of 35 to 40%. You pledge $1 and you end up paying, I think it was 38 cents in charges.
Yeah, the point of this being because they were moving to a model where every instance of backing was a separate transaction.
Yes.
And most money handling services like PayPal, there is a per transaction upfront cost which doesn't change, and you've suddenly got 20 of those rather than one of those.
Yes. Yeah. So you can see why they did it, but yes, and they turned around and said, yeah, it massively affects anybody who has lots of small dollar pledges people turned around and said, "I'm sorry, we're not doing it." So anyway, today they have announced that they are shelving that and going back. They haven't said what they're going to do instead, because they basically kind of said, "Yeah, we got that wrong. We have to go and rethink how we're going to do it." But at least they've backed out in the first place. So that was something.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
In fact, when they might actually be listening when their post title is literally "We messed up, we're sorry, and we're not rolling out the fees change."
Yes. It was fairly blunt, obvious, to the point. Yes.
Yeah. If you follow me on Facebook, it's I'll share it on Twitter as well. It's quite a direct and open and fairly honest.
I shared it on Twitter earlier this evening as we record this. As I say, give them the due. They put their hand up and kind of went, "Oh, oops, sorry, we really didn't think that one through, did we?" Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Anyway, enough about Patreon, and it's time for us to head off into the sunset for the last time in 2017. And so all it remains is to say, first off, thank you so much for listening to us this year. Thank you for supporting us, for all your feedback, all the chats on email and social media. It's been an absolute pleasure to deal with you guys as a community, as a bunch of listeners over the year. And thank you. You've made it a real pleasure. So thank you, one and all, for listening and for your support, your interaction, and for everything you've done. I'd just like to say thank you to my co-hosts for putting up with me for another year. Thank you to Mr. Whittaker.
Welcome as ever.
And thank you to the Welsh wizard himself.
You're very welcome, and thank you, Neil, for inviting me on again.
Yeah, we're kind of conscious of the fact you don't have to put up with us.
Especially on this new system, I have mute buttons. Yeah, so thank you both for staying on this journey with us through this year. Thank you also to Mr. Luff, wherever you are, for your occasional contributions.
His occasional words of wisdom.
Indeed.
Yes.
His occasional words of wisdom, and of course we are not at all going to admit and tell him that he's right.
No, definitely.
Or we may have a point. Definitely not. Definitely not. You did not hear it here.
Yeah.
No, of course.
No.
So, thank you. Have a great Christmas and New Year, or however you celebrate this season. Have a great time with your families and enjoy gaming over Christmas. Oh, any games on people's Christmas lists?
I know what's sitting in my Amazon purchases for Christmas. Well, not Amazon purchases, but purchases for Christmas, which is going to be my Christmas present from Anne and James. Let me just find it's going to be GMT Games Enemy Coast Ahead the Dambuster Raid.
Ooh.
Which is GMT are one of the big Hex and Counter board game producers, and this is a solo or potentially multiplayer recreation of the Dambusters Raid.
Sounds interesting.
Which I went, ooh, dang, that looks good. And there's a copy sitting on the and pounds. Hi, I've bought you your Christmas. We do this quite a lot for each other. So I've bought you your Christmas present for me.
Yes. Oh yes. Yes, I had the same.
So that I'm expecting a very, very, very large parcel of Mythic Battle stuff at some point.
As we all are.
As we all are. As we all still are.
Not sure what I'm going to do with it.
As we all have some very nice expansion sets and no core box to play it with. Not that I'm bitter at all.
No,
you don't, do you? Really?
Yeah.
Seriously, we have the expansions and not the core box.
Well, I went for the Titan Pledge with a box to put everything in, so it's all coming in one go.
No, so did we. We had the... I think we both went for the Pledge below. All the models.
The one before they start giving you the art books and nonsense. Yeah. Okay, so obviously, end of the it'll be end of the alphabet, won't it?
What they've done... Well, we believe what they've done is that obviously not only is it the case of they've shipped it in 2 boxes because the boxes are blooming huge, but also, if you remember, they had a slight problem with their distribution hub in the fact that they put a warehouse aside for all this stuff and then discovered their warehouse wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
So I suspect...
So yours may have been in the warehouse and mine may have fallen out the back?
Well, I suspect also that basically what they've done is that they have just got the boxes in and got them out the door without batching boxes together where they are box 1 and box 2 for the same person. So they have just shipped every box as if it's an individual box. So, well, that's at least what I'm hoping they've done. Otherwise,
yeah, I think that's what they've done really. It's just they had space to put so much in the warehouse, so they went, well, let's just put all the expansions in there because there's so many people who've ordered the bundles. It made sense they could probably do 3/4 of the bundles, get all of that out of the way, and then go back and do the smaller stuff. Because that's something else they said. It was the weight as well, because with the core box, you've then got all of the little mini expansions, and the weight of the big expansions probably would have crushed them. So they've been quite sensible in boxing things up of a similar size.
Oh yeah, and they were incredibly well packed.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we have no complaints on the fact of what we've received. What we've received is really nice, and it was incredibly well packed. It's just that we still can't play the game.
No. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a bit scary. There are individual expansions already going on eBay for 90 quid with bids.
Yeah. But anyway, let's bring this back to the season of joy and joyous seasons and things like that. Happy Christmas to all the Meeps. From all of us here at Meeples and Miniatures.
Indeed.
It's been a glorious year. It's been a special year. And I can't sound this sincere for very much longer.
If you don't roll good dice, hope Santa brings you some.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Have a good one, everybody.
Because Lord knows after my game last week, Ruben needs them.
Put him in our direction. I shall send him a set of blessed dice from Mr. Luff.
Blessed dice from Guru Luff. Woo!
Yes, I'm sure they're marketable. Anyway, yes. Season's greetings, one and all. Take care, happy gaming, and we'll speak to you in the new year. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast.
If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.